Hey everybody, Manny Talabear here. We're now on day 69, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain how I accidentally stumbled into marketing. I mean, just completely by accident, and how I ended up here, creating over 80 courses. I've done 3,000 strategy sessions, worked with over 300 clients. I'm going to kind of walk through within reason how that all happened. And it was 100% by accident. As a matter of fact, if you just kind of look at my progression, a lot of it is kind of misfortune at the very least. And uh, so I owned a pool room, I owned a hair salon, and I owned an advertising publication. But I immediately had to close the advertising publication and hair salon because I had to figure out what we were going to do with the pool room. Because the pool room, you know, it's not easy to move 16 pool tables. And by the way, I think I said 15 dynamo drop pocket tables. We also had one 8-foot Brunswick table in the front as well. So we had 16 tables. And so, like I said, the city's basically going to buy the building. They're going to tear it down. And I had to find a place. And so what I did is I just came back to Newcastle, and I bought a building on contract. And I bought a building that was basically condemned. It was just a dump. And I just set about cleaning it up, emptying it out, carpeting it, painting it, and basically setting up a room with a, billiard and dance club. And we had, I think, 12,000 square feet on. We had a loft area, and then we had a main floor, and then we had a basement. And I think we had 12,000 square feet there. And so I spent the next 5 or 6 months just doing that. And what I would do is we would we kept the pool room open in Carmel, but I would, every minute I could get, I would go to Newcastle, and we would just basically do all this work. And every penny that came in was being invested into the building in Newcastle. And the goal was to set everything up there. And that's essentially what I did. And we finally moved to Newcastle, but unfortunately, the problem is we moved the business to Newcastle, but I was still living in Carmel. And I didn't want to move back to Newcastle. And the other thing is that I'm legally blind and I don't drive. So I had to have people running me around when I do this stuff. I'd have somebody running me around. And there were just a lot of issues. There were issues finding someone to get me there. And the plan was this. I was going to be open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in Newcastle. We were not going to be open through the week. And we were going to do billiards and dance club. We were going to do karaoke. We bought a lot of sound equipment and lights and things like that. And we had a pretty good setup. Unfortunately, we had problems with the heating. We had problems with the transportation getting back and forth. We had problems with employee theft. And then we had problems with the customers. And between all of that, I just decided to shut it down because it just wasn't working the way it was supposed to work. And I'd spent about, I don't know, $20,000 on this building. And so we went up, we shut it down, and I just basically took all of the equipment, and I took all of the tables and I sold them. I sold the pool tables, but we still had probably $2,500 worth of DJ equipment in there. We had some very, very big speakers. We had amps and stuff like that, amps, soundboard. We had quite a bit of equipment. And I, you know, I was living in Carmel, but I didn't have any income. I mean, we had no income at all. And then this was the real problem. So this was a major issue. Buildings in Newcastle, I'm in Carmel. And every 30 days or so, someone broke into the building. They would basically kick the back door in. They would get into the building about 10 feet, and then the alarm would go off and they would run. They would run out of the building, and they would be, and then the police would show up and they would call me, and I'm in Carmel and I don't drive. And we would have to have someone come and get me to go fix the door. And it would usually be on a weekend at 3 in the morning. And it was a real problem. And so I was, my goal was very simple. I was going to empty this building out. I was going to sell it, and I was going to open another pool room. That was the plan, or get into a bar or invest with somebody. But I was going to get into something. And the problem, like I said, is that every time someone broke in the building, it was costing me like $150 between getting someone to come get me, going down there, fixing the door, having them bring me back. And it was a pain. And one day I'm up there, we're up there working on it, we're getting some stuff out of there. And a guy walked up and he basically wanted to rent the place. Now, I'll be honest with you, I did not want to rent this place at all, not even for a second. What I wanted to do was sell it. But at the same time, number one, I had no money. And this person was offering to hand me money, like a deposit in 30 days rent. Number one, I had no money. Number two, if someone breaks into it now, they're not going to call me, they're going to call this guy, and I'd be getting money out of it every month. And so the guy, I knew him. I'm from Newcastle. I knew him when he was a kid. And I said, look, I'm going to rent it to you. Do me a favor. Whatever you do, don't fill the building with junk and quit paying me. Because this is the thing. When I bought this building, it was full of junk from one end of it to the other. And I spent like a month and a half just emptying the building out, cleaning it completely out. Before we even started painting and carpeting and all that, we had to remove everything, and it was full of stuff. And I said, I just don't want to clean up mess. I said, if you can't pay, take your stuff, move down the road, we'll be fine. And he said he was going to be running a buy sell trade flea market. What he ultimately was running was a buy sell trade stolen merchandise junk store. That's all you can say about it. That's what it looked like to me. I mean, there were it was just, it's a mess. And get this, it took him exactly 60 days to fill this building with junk, and it took him 90 days to quit paying me. And so the first time that happened, I went up and I called my former partner in the pool room and I said, I need you to take me to Newcastle so we can break in a building and change the locks on a guy. And that's what we did. We went up there and we broke in the building, changed the locks. And what it is he'd given me 2 phone numbers to call him. He quits paying me, and I call both phone numbers and they're both turned off. So I can't even contact the guy. So I go up there, I break in the building, change the locks. Mysteriously, he calls me like a day later and he says, I'm really sorry. I've been out of town. I'm buying all this equipment. And he'd be talking about he's spending thousands of dollars here and thousands of dollars there, yet he's not paying me, right? And so he met up with me and he actually gave me the money he owed me, plus he gave me another month, plus he gave me the money for the locks, changing the locks. And so he gave me some money here. And then the next month, same exact thing happened. He didn't pay me. He didn't, his number was dead again. His supposed new number was only good for like 30 days. So he was gone, I couldn't get a hold of him. And this time I went up there and I had a conversation with him. And what happened is the guy I was buying the building off of on contract, he and I were in a dispute, and we were going to sue each other. So what I did is I went up to file a lawsuit against him to give my attorney money to file a lawsuit against that guy. And then I went by the building, went in and talked to this guy, and he's like, I don't know who owns the building. I'm not going to pay you. I'm not going to pay him. And what it is he's thinking he's going to get around not paying me because I'm in a dispute with the owner. And I looked at him, I said, look, dude, I'll tell you what's going to happen. You're going to leave here today or tomorrow, and somebody's going to come up here and change these locks, and you're going to be out. You're not getting back in at all. I'm not even going to take any more of your money. I said, as a matter of fact, I'm just going to go, I'm suing him, and I'm going to go and I'm going to go give my attorney another check, and she's going to just sue you too. And that's exactly what I did. I went, I gave my attorney more money, and she filed a lawsuit against both of them. And then, 3 days later, I had somebody change the locks on him, and I had them mail me the keys. And so then he calls me and he's apologetic and he's wanting to work things out. but he owed me a lot of money, and he had ran up a what he was doing is he was living in the building and ran up a water bill. He was turning the power on illegally, the water on illegally, he's doing all this stuff. And so I just said, you know, I said, we're just going to have to go to court. You're going to have to give me real money now. You're going to have to, because that water bill at that time, the water bill would follow you. So if he left and I owed like a $1,200 water bill, if he left, I would be responsible for that. And so I said, we're not doing this. And it took me, I mean, we went to court many, 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 many times. And the judge would just give him more time and more time and more time to empty the building out. And finally, I mean, I like the fifth time we went to court, the judge looks at me and asks me what I think we should do. I said, I told you 15 times. He never goes in this building. He's not going. So this is the argument. He said the stuff in the building was on consignment and he didn't own it. And if he didn't get his stuff out of the building, he would get sued. I would get sued. Everybody would get sued. And the judge would go along with it. And I finally said, look, every time he asks for more time, you give him more time, so give him more time and we'll just leave. But I said, in the meantime, he's had this building tied up for 6 months. I have no money. He owes me all of this money, and all you do is just give him more time, which he doesn't even use or do anything with. And the judge saw how irritated I was, and the judge just finally looked at him and said, look, if you want this building back, you're going to need to put up a $2,100 bond. And if it turns out you owe all of this money, Manny's going to get the money. And then he looked at me and said, you need to put up a $500 bond, because if he doesn't owe you all this money for wasting the court's time, you're going to forfeit your bond. And I immediately said, fine. And of course, he didn't have any money. So I went down and paid the bond. And, we went back and forth with my attorney about giving him time to get stuff out of the building. But ultimately, I ended up inheriting 6,000 square feet of junk. Now, there was some value in there, but it was just basically clothes and it was furniture, and some of it was nice, some of it was junky, some of it was mildewed, but there was just it was just full. And it was literally a $10,000 cleanup mess is what I inherited. And so I didn't have really any choice, because I couldn't sell the building with all the junk in it. And I had to empty the building out to sell it. And so my brother loaned me a trailer in Newcastle he wasn't using, and I moved into it. And then what I started doing, I would go up to the building every day and I would do as much as I could, and then I would go home. And what happened is I got one of these dumpsters, just a regular commercial dumpster, no big deal, like a 4x6 or whatever. And that's what I always had when I was in the pool room business. And what would happen is I would go up there, and in like 15 minutes, I'd fill that up, and then I couldn't do anything else until till the next week. And so I was up there one day, and my uncle came in and he said, Manny, you need to get on eBay and you need to start selling some of the stuff in this building. And then what you can do is you can hire someone to help you clean it up, and it's going to be a lot faster. And that's exactly what I did. And I had never been on eBay, never messed with any of that. I think I might have bought or sold a pool cue one time on there, but I got it on eBay, and fortunately, there was some value in the room. There were a lot of power tools in the room. There were a lot of camcorders and DVD and CD players, like a lot. As a matter of fact, there was so much stuff in there. I had the police come through and look at everything. I said, "Look, can't get this stuff back. I want you to go through it and make sure nothing's wrong with it. Making sure it's not stolen, because I'm going to be selling the stuff." And they went through and they gave me a clear and told me I could sell it. And so I started doing that. And I had this system. I would go up there and I would clean as much as I could, and I would take stuff home. I would clean the stuff at home, pack it, and get it all ready to sell on eBay for the next day. I would take pictures with a 0 megapixel camera, and I would list everything for one day. I didn't know anything about eBay, anything about selling. And while I was on eBay, just kind of cruising and looking for things, I stumbled onto a Jay Abraham course, and it was a it was a mindset, I mean, a mastermind course, and I went through it. I mean, I was reading all about it, and I really wanted them, but the cassettes were, it was cassettes, and they were like $180 or something, and I really wanted these. And my friend in Carmel thought that if he got me some free stuff, I wouldn't want the paid stuff anymore. Well, he got me like the X book. He found the X book online somewhere, and he sent that to me as a PDF. And he sent me marketing wizards or something. And I read those, and now I wanted the cassettes even more than I wanted them before. It was the opposite effect. Now I really wanted them. And so what ultimately happened is, you know, I basically sold enough stuff out of the building. I bought the cassettes, and I just started listening to them, and I listened to them over and over and over again. The first one I bought was a marketing mastermind, and then the second one I bought was a protege program, and then a third one was a protege program, and it was all Jay Abraham stuff. That's all I was studying. But I tell you what I started doing. I started studying marketing like 80 hours a week. Anytime I wasn't in that building cleaning, I was listening to these. If I was cooking, I was listening to marketing. If I was cleaning, I was listening to marketing. Um, if I was packing stuff up to sell on eBay and doing all the eBay listings, I was listening, do all the eBay listings, I was listening to marketing. And the first 2 weeks, after the first 2 weeks, I no longer wanted to just own a pool room. I wanted to own a pool room, and I wanted to help people with marketing. 2 weeks after that, no longer wanted anything to do with the pool room. I just wanted to help people with marketing. I wanted to be a marketing coach. That was all I was interested in. And that was my main focus. And that's how I got my start. And I ended up studying marketing well over 15,000 hours. As a matter of fact, I mean, I quit keeping track at over 15,000 hours. And I probably studied marketing over 5,000 hours since then. And it was first Dan Kennedy, excuse me, Jay Abraham, and then later on, Dan Kennedy, Harbecker, uh, I think John Reese. I mean, pretty much everything that said marketing on, I bought it. That was kind of my modus operandi. But essentially, I got into marketing because a guy filled the building with junk, and he quit paying me. I inherited all that junk. I had to sell that junk on eBay. And while I was on eBay, I stumbled onto Jay Abraham, and that's how I got involved. But what we're going to do is we're going to end out, and I will see you all on the next video. And thanks a lot.